Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 150 of Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the work of writer, director, producer J.J. Abrams and his extended Bad Robot universe. I'm Matt Crandall, here with my co-host Marcelo Inostroza, as we wrap up What About Brian Season 1. Today we are talking about the 5th episode, Sex Lies and Videotape, that aired May 8th, 2006, and was not intended to be the season finale, but ended up being the season finale because they made 6 episodes for this first season. They only aired 5. Episode 6 is not on streaming. It's like a DVD bonus feature that's very hard to track down. And when they came back for season 2, they knew that that episode didn't air, so they decanonized everything that happened in it. So we are not going to talk about that. We are going to talk about this big 5th episode, which does pick up shortly after the birthday party where Dave realizes that something happened between Dina and John Hamm, and he's kind of on edge. And Marcelo, as you predicted, the first thing he does is say, we gotta go old school style, and we're gonna get in my minivan, and we are gonna follow my wife everywhere she goes. No matter where she goes, we are gonna hide out. Marcelo, what are you thinking as Dave goes full stalker mode at the start of this episode?
You know, I feel kind of bad for Dave because I've been really critical of Dave as we've gone through the first season. And it's really disheartening to see Dave go through this with his wife because he was unable to communicate with his wife about not wanting an open marriage. And like I said earlier in the season, all this could have been avoided if Dina and him would have a truthful conversation about what kind of relationship they wanted to have within their marriage. And I just felt really bad for Dave because essentially Dave has been Dave, I feel, has been the butt of ridicule the whole season. He's the only one that hasn't had any meaningful sex this whole season. And I feel that this is a boiling point for him. And a real funny part is when Dave, Brian, Andrew, Adam, and Angelo are driving to go play golf. They're all talking about picking up these burritos, and Dave is driving his minivan, and the director of the episode keeps cutting back to Dave, and you can just see him boiling over. And, at one point he explodes and he says, forget about the fucking burritos. He pulls over into a car wash and he tells them, I think Dina is cheating on me. And the reaction from Adam is priceless because I know, and Matt knows, that the situation that Dave is dealing with is similar, but not the same to the situation that Adam is going to be dealing with if he finds out the feelings that Marjorie and Brian have for each other. So I thought that played really well into ratcheting up the tension in this final episode of the season.
It does. And so, he has mentioned in passing to the guys this open marriage thing, and then reaffirming that he thinks that she's actually gone through with it, and then laying out all the details. And the guy's like, you're insane. Why would you do this? So I think it's funny that, even them earlier, Brian has never really been fully on board with this, but Dave thought that he would be the guy who would be really cool about it and be out there having a lot of fun. And as we've seen in this first season, other than his flirtation with Suzanne from the video game company, he doesn't have any game, and it's not going to be like this easy thing. And he still loves his wife, so he doesn't want to see her fooling around with some handsome other guy. And the main thing he says, though, is that when I kind of agreed to this half-heartedly, I thought it would be random strangers. And that is what it's supposed to be. If you're going to try and attempt this, it's not supposed to be someone that is actually part of your life. And he's like, this dude is the dad of my daughter's best friend, and we see him all the time at school. That's not how you do it if you're going to do this. So Dave's hurt is threefold, because he's hurt that she went through with it first. He's hurt that it's somebody that they know and has to see all the time, and it kind of rubs his face in, him being a cuck. And then he's also hurt because, he never wanted this, but he's also not going to be the guy who's out there scoring every night. That's not his personality or his type. So for him, it's a lose. and they are late to the golf, so they aren't allowed to golf, which throws a wrench in the whole day. But as this is happening, the women are all at a bridal fitting to try and find a wedding dress for Marjorie, and this is where they find out about the open marriage thing, and it really rocks them. They're upset, they're mad about it. And so I thought that was interesting, as they are, it's weird for them to be trying on wedding dresses, talking about this holy institution of marriage, and then talking about the one friend stepping out on her husband and breaking the marriage vows. So what are you thinking, as the guys kind of have like a toned down version of this, but the girls are all thinking this was a horrible idea and they're all shocked?
Yeah, I really like the way that the showrunner constructed that by having the guys hear about Dave's by having the guys react to Dina cheating on Dave, and then on the other hand, having the girls react to that as well. As a storyteller, I found that to be very, very, very convenient, because you always want to intertwine your stories between your characters, and to have them all figure out the same thing at the season finale is very, very well done. I think that the girls were a little bit harder on Dina than the guys were on Dave, but in my estimation, girls are always harder on girls than guys are on guys. So I really feel that Dina got the I really feel that Dina got chastised harder from her friend group than Dave did. But with that being said, Adam says something very, very poignant several times in the episode. He says, "This is unbelievable. I can't believe this. You guys, being Dina and Dave, were the model that all of us were looking up to. And if you guys can't make it, then what does that mean for everybody else?" Nikki's the one that says that. And I found it really interesting between this dynamic of friends that there's this one couple that everybody else looks up to, but it's this one couple that, from a story's perspective, is worse off, because from the outside you can think a couple is great, but unless you're in the marriage with that couple, you have no idea what happens to that couple and what the dynamics of that couple are. So I really, really like that seismic shock that goes in between the guys and the girls in this episode, and I like what tension comes out of that as a result.
Yeah, and as you said, we've seen a lot of Adam kind of being hesitant and a little bit off-put by some of the marriage ideas, but in this episode he goes like full wife guy, where he's like, marriage is this thing, and like, if you guys can't make it, whatever, but like, and they're really selling like he has no doubts at this point. And I do think that like we have seen him have doubts, and obviously he has said like, "Oh, I couldn't imagine coming home and you not being here," to Marjorie, but he said it in such a way that like we didn't believe any of the shit this asshole's been spewing. But in this episode, to make the ending hit harder, they really try and make it seem like Adam is like devoted husband already, even though they aren't married yet. So I respect that they did that. I do think from everything we've seen of Adam, it was only last episode that they realized where this was going to be going by the end of the season, and they started to make Adam a little bit more likable and a little less frat bro who happens to be, Wall Street dude or whatever the fuck. So it's been interesting to watch that change, where like before he would be the guy high-fiving about open marriage, and now he's kind of, a little bit revolted and starting to worry what that would mean for a guy like him in his relationship. I did think it was interesting. Yeah, balancing the guys and the girls. And of course, the main thing you said, intertwining two different stories with each other and having like the themes carry over. The other thing that this all spurns is that Nikki and Angelo have a talk about how, their marriage, truth and being honest is the number one thing. And, Angelo's like, "I could never imagine Dina sneaking around on Dave and not telling the truth. And the truth is the most important thing here." So like for me, that's all or nothing. It's truth or get the fuck out. And she's like, oh yeah, totally. And we know she has a secret. She's been taking the fertility drugs, which have been giving her massive mood swings, even though Angelo has said, if we can't have a baby without fertility drugs, then I don't even want a baby at all. And she doesn't come clean. So, she has the moment where she could break down and tell him everything, and she does not choose to take it. How do you feel about this Angelo Nikki fertility drug storyline?
Well, look, it's no secret that I don't like them. I've compared them to another couple in the Bad Robot universe that we saw for like 3 episodes, I think, and then they got buried in the ground alive on an island somewhere. So, but that aside, I really think it was smart from a writer's point of view to take one issue from one issue from one of the couples and possibly use it and carrying it over into season 2, because I feel that this season we had 2 main storylines. We had Dina and Dave and their open marriage, and we had Adam, Marjorie, and Brian's story. And I think that those 2 drove this episode, but I think that it was a very, very smart idea for the showrunner and the writers of season 1 of this show to take the Angelo and Nikki story and move it into season 2 so that the audience can have something lingering, something to look forward to, and another bomb to blow up from a story perspective. Now, look, I understand that Nikki wants to have a child, and I understand that, but I'm worried that when she tells Angelo, I think that she's going to leave him. I think that he is going to really be upset with her, and I think that he might leave. Because when a husband tells a wife that all I want is you and I don't want children, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, that's enough for me, right? When I start dating someone, I start dating that individual for them. I don't think about what our relationship is going to be like in 20 years. I think about how I'm going to be with them, what kind of personal improvements I can have with them. I don't think about kids. That comes later. So I'm very intrigued to see what Angelo's reaction is going to be whenever Nikki ends up being forced to tell him, because they can't hold it for much longer. They just can't.
Her behavior is too erratic for this to go on too much longer without him realizing that something is wrong. And it is one of those things that I see both sides, and I kind of find it strange that his attitude is, I don't want to put you through this just to get a baby, when obviously, like, they had been trying for a baby for a long time, so that must be something that is important to them. And I know couples who are in real life who are together and have no children because that's what they agreed upon. But I also knew a dude who got a divorce because his wife decided she wanted kids and he didn't. And like, the person doesn't come first. If you really want a kid, that's something that's kind of a deal breaker. And that can be like something that you really should plot out before. So I'm a little surprised that they aren't on the same page of like baby at any cost. But as you said, I do think it's a smart decision to defer most of that to season 2, because we've got the immediate mess going on to deal with, which, speaking of, relationships falling apart with Brian, last week there was the awkward moment with Lisa B. 2 awkward moments with Lisa B. She heard Marjorie's message, which sounded way too intimate for just friends. And also, Brian shut down and acted like a complete asshole when she started asking him why he was still single. And so things were already shaky between these 2. And for some reason, Brian lets Marjorie know that, like, Lisa B heard the message and it's not great, which I understand why he told her that. But then for some reason, and we kind of know the deep in her heart reason, Marjorie thinks, oh, let me go fix this, which of course is the absolute wrong move. So she goes to see Lisa B on her own to tell Lisa B, like, there's nothing between me and Brian. But the mere fact that she has shown up in person means that everything she's about to say is a fucking lie. That Lisa B can see that there is something going on with her and Brian. There is something to be concerned about. And Marjorie's impromptu visit is the last straw. That then Lisa B is like, Brian, we are done. I'm sorry. Your shit with this woman is too messy for me to get involved in. And that is the key thing with Brian was last week he was being selfish. This week she tries to present it as her doing the right thing, but Marjorie is being selfish by going into a situation that she should have just stayed out of. So what do you think of this whole Lisa B Marjorie dynamic, and then Lisa B realizing like this is too much for me when we're just starting to date? I'm better off cutting and running before this blows up in my face a year from now.
Enough of this bullshit, Marjorie. Enough. I completely agree with you, Matt. She should have just stayed out of the drama between Brian and Lisa B. But with that being said, Marjorie knows in the deepest parts of her heart, she knows that she won't be able to walk down the aisle with Adam. Everybody knows it. And I think that for the last couple episodes, Marjorie has just been trying to go through the motions and say, no, I love Adam. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to live the rest of my life being in love with these two guys, and it's all going to be fine. But newsflash, girlfriend, it's not going to be fine. It's going to be a living fucking hell. So to that, when Brian confronts Marjorie about her conversation with Lisa B in Brian's apartment, I really like what Marjorie says, because she basically says, what if we end up together? Am I going to be able to live up to the idea of me that you have in your head? And what happens when I can't? Are you just going to be bored with me, and are you just going to throw me aside, just like all the other side pieces that you have in your life? How do I know that you're going to treat me different than all the other women that you've dated in your entire life? So I really like Marjorie turning the tables on Brian in that moment and using his insecurities against him. And I was really interested to see how he was going to respond, but the way that he ended up responding was emotionally. And I think that in that moment, I think that the writer and the director kind of pulled out the rug from underneath me, because what they did from a tutorial standpoint, I thought was awesome, but they kind of just pulled back from that, and what they did was like torturous. But what do you think about all that stuff?
Well, I think their big blow up scene is interesting, and a lot of valid points were raised, but also I'm partly rolling my eyes because I'm like, okay, like, don't turn this into like a friends to enemies to lovers kind of thing. So I appreciated that they both just need to be super honest about what's happening here, and we do get a step in that right direction. Now, I'll save the exact ramifications of that final scene for a little bit later, because there's a few other subplots we should talk about first. But I do think the response that Brian had was surprising to me in that moment, and it was more heated than I thought it could have been, but also we kind of get it because so much has gone on. So as we mentioned earlier, Dave has been tracking his wife all day, and there's a few times where everybody kind of meets up at I think it's Adam and Marjorie's house, where they're just kind of hanging out on the couch. But then there's a lot of comings and goings. And so Dina meets up with John Hamm when Dave is not tracking and doesn't know about this meeting, and he gives her a present. He gives her this necklace that you're supposed to wear until it breaks, and when it breaks, if you made a wish on it, the wish comes true. And she's like, okay, thanks for the present. And then she goes about her day, and she's kind of thinking like, I don't know, man, this present from this guy when it's just supposed to be a fling. And if he gave me a present, then like maybe he thinks it's more than it is. And so later in the day, she meets up with him again at a motel. Now, unfortunately, this is when Dave is tracking her. And so Dave earlier in the day has been relieved that they haven't caught wind of any weird shit. But then it's just him and Adam in the van because Brian and Angelo are at the pad. And when they pull up and they see her go to the motel, Dave has a freak out. Like it is over for Dave in this moment where he's like, Adam, get the fuck out of the van. And I was like, how am I getting home? He's like, I don't give a shit, dude. Like, I'm too upset because he realizes that this has happened and he realizes who it's with. And again, that is the main thing, is it's not supposed to be somebody that they see all the time and that they know. And he realizes the ship has sailed. For him to object to this open marriage, it's too late. It's already too late. What we see is that Dina tells John Hamm, like, you're acting creepy, dude. Like, this was just supposed to be a fun. And you're turning it into a relationship, and like, I can't have that. I got a relationship already that I care about. And so like, if we're just not going to be banging in the back of my minivan at the grocery store, I can't give you more and I don't want more. And John Hamm, they turned Richard. Halfway through the season, he was like the playboy who like, we thought he was just sleeping with all the hot moms. And then they turned him into like relationship guy in this episode too, where I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, we got to stay together. And then she rips off the necklace and he's like, your wish won't come true. And she's like, it just did, asshole. And so like, I'm happy that Dina has realized like she shouldn't have a boyfriend. If she's going to do this, it's got to just be rando, physical, and it's over and never see them again. But I think she's realizing the error of her ways too late. What are you thinking as Dina dumps John Hamm and John Hamm acts like sad puppy dog? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? But then Dave literally kicks Adam out of the car because he's so upset and he's just got to go for a drive.
Yeah, I don't. Listen. I love John Hamm as a actor, as I've said in previous weeks, but I don't think the writers really kind of gave that character a satisfying arc. Because if they wanted to, they could have just made him a hot dad that liked to sleep with hot married women the whole season. If they had written him like that, then this whole scene would have been sort of like, I would have played it as, okay, he essentially is a playboy that wants to sleep with hot moms, but Dina is the one for him. Dina has made him realize that he has a chance of true happiness with him. So I would have given his character a little bit more to play with, but with what they gave John Hamm to do, I was like, whatever. Look, if I'm being honest, he came off as clingy to me in this episode. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? You knew what this was. And the fact that you're trying to hold on to it by giving her some sort of cheesy, necklace and coming up with this cheesy thing, when you take it off, that's when your wish comes true. I mean, that's fucking cheesy. That's like Walmart greeting card bullshit. I was like, this is not working for me. On the other hand, I am really happy for Dina that she kind of came to her senses, like you said, and she understood that this is not what she wanted in this open relationship. But I fear her lack of communication with Dave is going to cost her more than this breakup with John Hamm's character. And you sort of mentioned it at the end there, when Dave finally sees what happens at the hotel room, when he kicks Adam out of the car. I felt so happy because if you've been paying attention, you know exactly where he's going and you know exactly what he's about to do. So I just felt really, really happy for him in that moment, because I was like, all right, you know what? You've been the butt of many jokes. You've been a loyal husband this whole time. Your communication hasn't been great, but I'm willing to forget that for now because you fucking deserve this. You fucking deserve this, and you go get it.
Well, and yeah, obviously he's running to throttle Autobahn's #1 fan to go throttle her. And I think that we're like, okay, if he's got to do this, like, fine, but him doing this kind of out of spite now is going to blow up in his face in the long term, because also the programming woman is a really nice lady who, like, he's going to hurt her in the process of trying to hurt his wife because she hurt him. Hurt people. It's going to be a vicious cycle that I'm sure we'll be dealing with the aftermath in season 2 to see what kind of fallout this has. So yes, we're like, yeah, go get it, Dave. But also it's like, but dude, if you had thought it through, you're going to realize that yes, your wife betrayed you, but you agreed to it. But this might take it too far that you might fracture things so they can't be repaired. So we will have to see. And luckily it does seem like it's the end of Richard, John Hamm's character, who did go from the player of the playground to stage 5 clinger in like such a weird arc that I'm like, get this fucking guy off my screen. Let him go get some hair gel and become Don Draper, because I'm sick of this character big time. Then the big culmination of the episode. So the main things we've done is, Brian's sister not honest with her husband. Her and Brian do have a talk where she kind of lays out that she realizes what's going on with him and Marjorie and says, like, dude, you can't ruin your best friend's life, but also, like, if you're gonna, can you just do it? Can you just do it now instead of like waiting till they're at the altar and then fucking everything up? And so, we see a moment where Brian is emasculated when Marjorie is going to come out in the dress that she thinks is the dress. She's like, oh, I can't come out if guys are there. And they're like, this is not guys, it's just Brian. And that kind of leads to like his talk with his sister and the revelation that he's in love with Marjorie. And I got to say, Sarah Lancaster, she looked nice in the wedding dress. The first dress she had on, I thought I was like the Tex Avery cartoon of the Wolfman going, awooga, like the first dress. Oh my God, she was a smoke show. The dress she actually picked, I'm like, okay, she looks okay, but she looked so much hotter when she was more relaxed earlier in the episode. But Brian, obviously the Lisa B thing goes sideways. And so after everybody has basically gone home and it's Brian and Marjorie, they have their big fight. They have the big fight, screaming about, what am I supposed to do? And like, we both know we're in love with each other, but I can't live up to you and you can't live up to me. And so much emotion that even if you were a passerby at the window, you would know this is not just two friends having a fight. This is something more. And unfortunately, the passerby at the window is Adam, who is coming home after walking from being abandoned by Dave. And he sees at the sliding door into his kitchen, and he sees these two screaming and fighting with each other. And even if he doesn't hear the words, you can tell this is like a lover's quarrel. This is some sort of bottled up passion that is coming out in anger. And this is where we end the season, with Adam realizing something is going on that he has not picked up before. What are you thinking in the final moments of the season when the camera, as you mentioned earlier, it's a nice shot where the camera pulls out from their fight and goes outside, and we see Adam looking kind of confused and bewildered as, the love of his life and his best friend are clearly having a lover's quarrel.
I am thinking, oh my God, what I wouldn't love to... I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish I could be with Adam when he confronts Brian after he comes out of the house. Because the storylines that this episode set up for a potential season 2, you seem to be worried about the repercussions that Dave sleeping with that girl who was going to buy his game and make him famous, hopefully. You seem to be worried about the tension that's going to create with Dave and Dina, but I'm worried about the tension that is going to be created when Adam confronts Brian about his true feelings for Marjorie. And I think that's the perfect way to go into season 2, with all these different storylines boiling at the surface and almost getting ready to explode. Because I think that as an audience member, that's how you deliver drama, and that's how you push the story forward. Am I going to like it? No, because I like Dave and Dina, but I really, really need them to figure out how to communicate with one another, because this whole bullshit open marriage thing wouldn't have happened if they just sat down with one another and be honest with one another about what they need. And I want to see if this whole situation between Brian and Marjorie causes Adam to realize, oh, I need to grow up and I need to stop being an asshole. I need to change my life, and I need to mature as a person. And I've already spoken about the Angelo and Nikki stuff already, so I'm excited to see that too, but less. But I think going into season 2, there's so many interesting new dynamics that our main characters can go through that I think it's going to be a really, really fun final season of the show, unfortunately. What are you looking forward to the most?
Now, for the listeners out there, I did watch this show back in the day. So this has been a rewatch for me. And I think part of the reason I'm focusing a little bit on some of the other stuff, huge spoiler for season 2, is that Sarah Lancaster leaves the show for almost all of season 2. She's not in it. She is gone. So this Marjorie Adams shit gets curtailed because Sarah Lancaster is only in 3 episodes of the second season. So I have enjoyed the Marjorie Adam Brian dynamic, but that is not our thing going forward because she's gone. She's gone. So I've tried to focus more on the Dave and Dina and some other storylines that I know continue into the second season, because Sarah Lancaster shortly after this show would be on Chuck for NBC. And I believe that is the reason why she isn't in much of season 2, because they had to retool a few storylines. And I think they signed everybody to like a couple episodes here, a couple episodes there to save money. She's one of the top 4 billing on Chuck. So it's Chuck, Morgan, and then Chuck's sister. So like she is one of the main series regulars on that show. And I think that she was just forced to choose. We will have to see how they deal with this in the second season, because Sarah Lancaster is only in a couple episodes, a very small handful. And so they will try and introduce some new people. Now, the good news for Marcelo, who didn't necessarily know this information, is that when they are trying to slot in some new people, we bring in a few people that you are going to recognize. Most specifically, number 1, Amanda Foreman from all the Bad Robot shit. Megan from Felicity does join the cast. So we get a few more people. They also started to realize that Brian and his friends groups were pretty white and that maybe they should do something about that. Obviously, Nikki's husband is one of the only ones that would be, diverse in the cast, but they decide to fix that. And so they bring in another good character actor, Jason George, to come in and sort of jazz up the situation, because they realize like, hey, we got an entirely white cast here. Like, what are we doing? And that maybe wouldn't fly. So they do change it up, but there are big changes coming to the next season as this show tried to find its voice. And I do think that a lot of external factors that weren't the storytelling on screen influenced the way that it had to adapt, because they really tried to dial in, focus the show on maybe a slightly different demographic and boost those ratings. And unfortunately, because it only got 2 seasons, it wasn't able to do that. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that in that cast retooling, someone on the show dies in like a ridiculous, like, oh my God, they killed this person. That was the easiest way to get them off the show. That I can't wait till we get to that episode and Marcelo is going to be like, what the absolute fuck? So that's great. So we got all that to look forward to. So if you guys are looking forward to anything, let us know. You can get in touch with us using the hashtag radio815 or emailing
radio815 at AOL.com.
or on X at JJUniverse815. You can get in touch with me nowhere, except you can log some movies on Letterboxd. I am MDC3000, logging movies on the best social media movie website there is. Marcelo, if the people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Hey, if you want to get in touch with me, I am sort of going to retool our YouTube channel. So if you guys don't like traditional podcasts and you want to know where we're also available, we're also on YouTube. We're at youtube.com/radio815. All our back episodes are there. We covered everything in the JJ universe that you would expect. We covered Alias, Felicity, Lost. Come over there and chat with me over there because I do some great work over there. And that place could use some love.
So there it is. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, check out the YouTube, do all that shit. And until next time, Radio 815, over and out.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.